I don't know about the rest of you, but during quarantine, during this whole COVID-19 situation, I've been getting extremely bored. I found some activities that are great for passing time, but my favorite one has been baking and cooking. I've tried multiple different recipes. Most of them have been dessert recipes since my family all love treats and desserts, anything sweet pretty much. And my favorite recipe I've tried so far are cinnamon toast crunch cookies. They're super good and really easy to make, and I'll walk you through the steps and show you the final product. The only ingredients that are sort of out of the blue that you'll need are the cinnamon toast crunch cereal and marshmallows, and the marshmallows are completely optional. The very first step while baking or cooking is to wash your hands. Especially with the pandemic going on, it is really important that you do this throughout the process. When baking these cookies, I find it easiest to set out my ingredients prior to starting. So here's a photo of all the things you will need with a list of the ingredients as well. Alright, I have my mixing bowl, and I'm going to start by adding 1 stick of unsalted butter as well as a cup of sugar. And then I'm going to mix those together. Now I'm going to be using a mixer for this, but it is also possible just to mix it by hand with a spoon. I just find it easier to use a mixer. Now we're going to blend together the butter and sugar. If you're using a mixer, use the medium strength for blending. After mixing these two ingredients, this is how it should look. Looks a little clumpy, not very appetizing, but I promise you it will turn around and it will be delicious. Next, I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract to the butter and sugar mixture. We also need to add 1 large egg into the mixture. Now it's important that we're careful not to crack the egg in a way that shell gets into the pan, and if it does, try to pick it out because it will turn out crunchy in the cookies if you leave it in there. Now that we have added egg and vanilla to the butter and sugar mixture, we're going to blend it all together on medium. After mixing, the dough should look more smooth and less clumpy than it did before. Now it's time to set aside the mixing bowl, and we're going to get out a new one. So this doesn't have to be as big. We're just going to mix a couple dry ingredients in there just to even it out before we mix it with the others. The first ingredient we're going to add to the new bowl is 1.5 cups of flour, along with a teaspoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. After all of them have been added, we're going to mix it up, and a fork works just fine for this. It just evens out the dry ingredients. After mixing all of the dry ingredients, it'll look something like this, just kind of a powdery mixture. The next step is to combine the contents of the two bowls. So we're going to do this by adding the dry ingredients into the mixing bowl. After you've combined the two bowls and the two ingredients, you can go ahead and mix them, and it is possible to use a higher setting for this if you are using a mixer, just because there are more ingredients and this part will take a little longer. A trick I like to use while doing this is pulling up the mixer and pushing out the chunks just because it blends more even. Scooping down the sides with a spoon like this too also helps with that as well. Now we're going to grab the Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal and measure out 1 cup. Then dump it into a Ziploc bag and seal it up. When you're crushing the cereal, you want to try and get the pieces as small as possible so the crumbs look super little. This way it'll blend easier with the rest of the mixture. As you can see from the picture, it's not perfect, but the pieces are pretty small. Now go ahead and add the crushed up Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal into the mixture. I'm also going to put in 1/2 cup of mini marshmallows. These are optional but highly recommended. Turn the mixer on high one last time to blend everything together, and then go ahead and put it into the fridge for about 30 minutes. Refrigerating the cookie dough will make it a lot firmer, and when you take it out of the fridge, you will notice that the consistency of the dough will be a lot easier to roll and place on the cookie sheet. Here's an example of what it will look like. At this time, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. The dough is finally ready to be formed into cookies. Just pick up a chunk and roll it into a 2-inch ball and place the balls 2 inches apart on a cookie sheet. I normally put parchment paper under the cookies and on top of the cookie sheet, but it is optional. These ingredients make about 20 cookies, and I have found that it saves time if you use 2 cookie sheets in the process. Once you have filled up the cookie tray with evenly spaced out cookie dough, go ahead and put it in the oven. Bake the cookies for 11 to 13 minutes and check on them frequently. Here is the final product. They taste amazing and the recipe is super easy to follow. For those of you who get bored during quarantine, I definitely recommend you make these cookies. They combine breakfast cereal and dessert, all while putting a new twist on the classic snickerdoodle. I hope this recipe finds someone who has the same feelings about quarantine as I do and eases their boredom just a little bit.